We are so silly today. Okay. We're silly every day.
All right, Miss Angela. Oh, welcome to the Three Quirky Quilters, and we're all quirky and pointing to me. So we're going to start today's podcast, and we're going to talk about charity quilts because they're all a big part of all of our lives in so many ways, both doing them, helping others, being the facilitator for them, and all kinds of great stuff, right?
Right.
Are a good thing.
They're a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think all three of us have been, well, I know for a fact all three of us have been involved in charity quilting pretty consistently through the entire time that we've been long arm quilters. I know Tracy's done some charity quiltins where she's had big groups of people come into her showroom and quilt. I have as well for different things that have gone on over the years. So there's things like that you can do, but some of the organizations that we're going to highlight today there are organizations that are either both in the US and Canada, or they are organizations that are national in the US. And there's probably many other, charities. These are just some of the ones that I came up with today for us to talk about.
So what are those? What's that beautiful list, dear?
So the first one is Quilts of Valor. Quilts of Valor does quilts both in the US and in Canada. And they are given to servicemen. And I have done many Quilts of Valor quilts since I started long arming, about 16 years ago now. And you can get involved with Quilts of Valor in many ways. You can just give them a finished quilt. It doesn't have to be a patriotic quilt. At least in the US, it doesn't. Nope, not in Canada either.
Here we have size specifications and
Yes.
And of course, they need to be quality cotton. And
yes,
there are specifications, but not with the fabric. Doesn't have to all be red and white.
Right. Doesn't. So yeah. So they do have to be 100% cotton in the US as well, as far as the fabric. And they would like quality batting used in it. So you want to look up. They need to be big enough that they can be wrapped around someone, because when they do. When they actually give the quilts to the service members, they wrap the quilts around them. Okay, so they need to be bigger quilts. These are not going to be baby size quilts, and not even throws. Typically, think more like a twin size quilt or bigger. Okay, they're typically larger quilts. And then many of them, like I know the ones that I was at a show with Tracy in Canada. I went to Quilt Canada at one point with Tracy. And Tracy was gracious enough to let them use one of her long arms that she happened to have with her in their booth so that they could quilt.
What? Got a spare, right? Got a spare long arm over here. Anyone need to use it?
Right? Angela, we had the in the hotel. The frame was in the trailer, but the
long arm was in the hotel room because it wouldn't fit in the booth. So we set it up in the Quilts of Valor booth.
Yeah.
And they quilted on it all weekend long. It was awesome. It was completely awesome.
Good. It was so good. They still talk about that.
Yeah, of course. That's how many people are going to, first of all, have a spare long arm, and second, go, let me just set it up tomorrow morning and you can use it, right?
Yeah.
Got one up my sleeve.
Yeah. So it was really cool to see the quilts actually being done at a show too. And there were, people that donated thread, and once they realized what was going on, they were like, here, have some thread, It was great.
Yeah, it was Pauline Clark at Three Dogs Quilting.
Yeah.
She's out of Ottawa area.
Yeah.
And she's a glide thread distributor, and she gave us all kinds of thread to give to the Quilts of Valor booth. She was wonderful. Thank you, Pauline.
Yes. Thank you, Pauline. You were wonderful. Yeah.
She was. Yeah.
I'm sure she still is wonderful.
Oh, she is. She's a lovely lady. I love her.
Yeah. So, there's things that you can do like that too, that actually brings a lot more attention to the organization, right? Because the machine was actually moving and people were stopping to ask why they were quilting quilts inside this quilt show. And anybody who knew how to long arm was allowed to use the long arm. So it's kind of cool too. And it kept that quilting in their booth too, which is also good. But and so that was fun. And we've also done things like had quiltathons, like I said earlier, inside the show room. So I've had weekends where anybody who knows how to quilt in Raleigh could come in and quilt, and we'd already have the frames loaded for them. right? So we had a whole bunch of quilts that were going out, and we just quilted them one right after another.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's scary how many quilts you can get done. If the tops are already ready to go. I mean, I know I've done over 70 quilts in 2 days, but I also had 5 long arms going. So,
Done though.
yeah, so yeah. And I know
That's awesome.
yeah. And I know Tracy's done it when the bus of hockey players were killed in Canada. I know you did it too. Yeah.
We had that was the whole weekend. We did a big marathon, and I had people come. They brought their sewing machines. So we actually had a lot of stuff got donated to, like tops people had already made, but we had a station where people were sitting with their domestic machines piecing more because we were quilting them faster than they could piece them. And we had other people at another station that were cutting the pieces. And it was just, that was an amazing experience to be able to be a part of. It was a horrific incident.
It
was really good for us to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. I really feel, and then, well, in our store, I give a discount, to the organization, and they can have people who want to come in and quilt. As long as they're certified, they can come in and complete the quilts that way. And then we have Claudia, who for Ukraine did all of those beautiful quilts as well. So for the charity that way, right?
Yeah, she's got thousands of quilts.
Yes.
And everyone was just sending in, for the most part, what we were sending her was 12.5-inch blocks, 12-inch finished blocks. And they put them all together and made thousands and thousands. Last time I heard it, I know it's over 6,000. Yeah. And she still has blocks, guys. So
yeah.
It's amazing.
So you'll hear drives like that too, where they're looking for something specific. Like for one of the fires in the U.S., we had somebody who wanted house blocks, and it was like multiples of 3, 6, 9, or 12-inch house blocks, so that they could make quilts out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't remember which wildfire it was, but that was for one of the wildfires. So for veterans, like I said, both Canada and the U.S., we have Quilts of Valor. For just the U.S., there's also an organization called Quilts of Honor that also gives servicemen quilts or veterans quilts. So those are the two that I know of in the U.S. And then you get into quilts for kids, right? So there is an organization called Quilts for Kids that all of their charities are centered around children that are in distress in some way. It could be that they went through a natural disaster. It could be that they lost a house, lost a parent, right? Or that they're dealing with an illness themselves, but it's all for children that are in distress. And that is an organization that my guild actually works with. So we do a lot of quilts for kids quilts at my guild or at my store because my guild does it. And to give you an idea, just for the ones in the Raleigh area, my guild does about 500 quilts a year for quilts of kids. So what we do is we let you do the part of the quilting that you like. So there are 2 bees that meet at my showroom that actually piece tops. And when the tops are done, they'll piece batting to get it together. We do a lot of franken batting with this organization. And we also
nothing wrong with a good franken bat.
Yeah, nothing wrong with a good franken bat, right?
No.
Use up everything. They make sure the backings are long enough for the long armers, and then they package them up so that all we have to do is long arm them. One of the things that my company does is we let any of our renters quilt any of those quilts for free. So they don't have to pay to quilt it. They can come in and practice anything they want on our long arms, as long as they've taken a rental certification class from us, and they've either taken their class or have been quilting within the last year. So you have to keep certified, you have to quilt a lot. So yeah. A lot of people will go, I took my class like 11 months ago, I need to come in and quilt a quilt, right? So that they keep up. So that's worked really well for us, and it keeps all of our long arms moving, which is nice too. So if usually what'll happen is someone will call up and say, I have a couple hours today. If someone gets done early, can I come in and quilt? So there's no downtime typically sitting on those long arms. So I know that they're a really good organization because, like I said, we've quilted a lot of quilts for them as well. And then another one is called Wrap Them in Love. I found them through an internet search today. There's a couple on here that I found through an internet search. They are another children's organization that deal with children in distress. They actually send quilts worldwide. So I know they've sent them to Ethiopia. They listed a couple of different places on their website. So that's another organization you can get involved with if you would like to. We're actually going to list all these down in our description too, so that you know the ones that we've talked about. Okay. And then the last children's one is, there's two. They're probably better known. So one of them is Project Linus. Project Linus does take quilts. They do call them blankets. They do take.
But it's Linus, so
it's Linus. We'll take it for that one.
It's yes.
So quilts are acceptable for them as well. And then the Ronald McDonald House. So if you don't know about the Ronald McDonald House, it is a charitable arm of McDonald's that was started by McDonald's. It's its own charitable 501c corporation now. It is not under the McDonald's umbrella anymore. But they put houses near children's hospitals that the parents can stay in when kids are admitted to the hospital. And they provide food for them. They provide housing for them locally that the parents don't have to pay for.
No, they do actually. They do have to pay $20. So because we just did, the reason I just know is I just got a big tour of the one here. We donated Sold to George, and all of the money, the raffle went towards Ronald McDonald's house, and we raised over $5,000 for him. Got the big tour of the house that looks. It's huge. Got me from the outside to the inside. You're like, this just keeps on going. But the funny thing about it is that we said, I came out of the blue. I said, let's do $100 let's do $20 for a ticket or $100 for 6 tickets. And she goes, that's really funny that you came up with those numbers because it costs us $100 a night to house a family, but we only ask $20.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure there's some other issues if some other things come up because some of them are there for a long
So to me, $20 is almost free, guys. I mean, when you're looking at a hotel room, even in Raleigh, you're going to be looking at $300 a night for a hotel room, right? So, yeah, $20 a night.
You could be.
That's a blessing at that point.
It was. That organization is really amazing. So if you get a chance to go to your Ronald McDonald house that's in your area, because I'm sure a lot of them have a lot of us have them where we don't even know it. Jake didn't even know about it. So Jake, my grandson, has special needs, and Jake was very overwhelmed about this organization because they were out front with the brewery next to us was doing a fundraiser, and so we really have taken a big love of this organization. And also you can be eating your fries, so French fries kind of go towards so you can be eating your fries and going quilting and be doing double duty there.
One of the great things about McDonald's franchisees is they tend to support the Ronald McDonald House and support it well. Which you can say what you want to about the quality of their food, but they are trying to help their communities.
I actually do love their fries. I'm sorry. I love their fries.
My favorite fries. But yeah, I got to go in and cook at the Ronald McDonald House multiple times, or take teams into the Ronald McDonald House.
How fun.
Cook, because I used to manage McDonald's many years ago when I first graduated from college. And the franchisee I worked for was a large one in Atlanta. And so we would take big groups in, and once a month, there was somebody from our franchise group, a team from our franchise group, supporting Ronald McDonald. There's many, many franchises in just like that one metro area. But yeah, it was pretty cool. And it's neat to talk to the families. It's another good organization that is I love to support, right? I love to get in personally volunteer, right? Because you feel like taking the time to talk to the parents and sometimes the siblings as well, right? Is helping them out, right? So
And fun fact, you'd be having your fries, and if you open up a soda can, you take the little tab off, because that's where all of the money is when you recycle your can, is in that little tab. They still collect tabs, and those tabs pay the electricity bill every month.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right? I didn't know they still, because that's the thing I remember as a kid in school, many, many thousands of decades ago, raising, all of us because of the big pole can. But anyway.
Yeah.
Still a great fun fact.
That's amazing that they can fund the electricity just off those tabs.
Right?
Yeah.
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 Love it.
And then we have some quilts that are a little more specific. So there is Victoria's Quilt, which is a US and Canadian charity that supports people who have cancer. So they give quilts to people who are going through chemo and through cancer treatments. So that's another good organization to get involved with and try to get somebody some love. Dream Cotton, or the Dream Company, which makes Quilter's Dream, right, also has a charity for people with ALS, and it's called Hopes and Dreams Quilts, and you can donate quilts to the Dream Company, right? And then they will get those to somebody who is suffering with ALS. And then the last one I found is more of a clearinghouse. So it's called the Giving Quilt, and it's an organization that takes quilts in and then spreads them across different organizations that need quilts. Okay. So if you donate to them, your quilt could be going to anybody, right? But they're going to find somebody who needs a quilt and get the quilt to them. So it doesn't, in their case, it doesn't matter what you're donating, somebody's going to love that quilt. The other places that you can donate that may not seem as obvious necessarily, I give all my practice cloth to my local animal shelter. I cut it into squares and give it to them, big squares, right? And they can put it in kennels. Yeah, kennels for the dogs and cats. They love it. There's also a barn cat rescue in Raleigh that loves to get practice cloth from us. If for some reason the ASPCA, or not the ASPCA, but the animal shelter doesn't need it. And then we're doing like Wake County, which is our county animal shelters. So, and then another, like your guild, quilt guilds usually have charities that they work with. Mine has 3. We do 500 quilts for each of those every year. So 1,500 quilts a year minimum are going out from our guild every year. It's crazy. There's only 250 of us, right? And that's just one of the guilds in my county. There are 4 guilds in my county. So I don't think they all do that many quilts, though. You can give them to a lot of other places too. Habitat for Humanity local chapters sometimes take them if they are building a house that they can use the quilt in. I've donated quilts to Habitat for Humanity for home builds. Now, I will tell you, I found out they needed the quilt because I was also helping build the house, right? But that's another organization that I've supported and has been very surprised that someone was willing to give them a quilt. And then like churches, local hospitals, I was kind of surprised. My mother-in-law, unfortunately, has been battling breast cancer this year. And when she goes to the hospital, they have a bunch of different ways that they can support her. But one of them is that you can go, it's called the wig shop, but it's not just wigs. You can go to the wig shop, which is a charity that they run inside the hospital. And there's you can choose a wig, you can choose a hand knitted hat or a hand crocheted hat, right? You can have a quilt or an Afghan. They have this whole shelf of things that they're allowed to pick from, and they get 5 items, whatever 5 items they want.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So she was surprised because she saw quilts there, and she looked at them and she goes, "Those are quilts. Those are expensive." And she goes, "Nope, that's what people have donated for you. You can have one." And then she goes, my daughter-in-law's a quilter. I have quilts. Right? Like,
Reach out to the hospitals too for the dialysis unit.
well, yeah, because it's
NICU. I think here, anyways, I've heard, and I don't know. The NICU unit it's very specific with size, type, all those kind of things, and then
what they're washed with.
Yeah.
Materials that they're made with, what they're washed with. I know one of the 3 charities that my guild does is from the NICU, and they're very, very specific, and our local NICUs only take them from the guilds. So it has to be a group that they know is going to police and wash them correctly.
And they have to. They have to.
Safety,
they're not being snobby or picky or any of that. There's a reason they have to be what.
Yeah, I mean, they have to be really worried about different chemicals going into there. So and the last thing you want to do is a baby that's under distress make them even sicker. We don't want that either, right? So one of the really cool ones, and you can also talk to your local like Child Protective Services, the police department, the fire department. We actually have an organization in Wake County that kind of supports all of those, and the guild does donations to them. So what those quilts are used for, like they put them in the back of cruisers, so if they have to take a child out of a house, they can wrap the kid in the quilt and get them out of the house without them feeling they're exposed to everybody, right? When
teddy bears too.
Teddy bears go into there. They typically have a quilt and a teddy bear and a toy of some sort other than a teddy bear in the back, a book, right, in the back of their car, something to try to distract the kid, because they're taking him out of their family unit sometimes. And then also just being able, if you have someone who's in shock, trying to get them to come out of shock. So there's a lot of ways that you can give, is what I'm trying to say. If you want to be giving quilts away, many ways you can do it, and not just to people right? There's a lot of people out there that need things and aren't as lucky and as fortunate as some of us. So yeah.
And if you're wanting to long arm into practice, it's a great way to pair your skills or your budding skills with an organization.
Right, because a lot of those organizations are having quilt tops made and are pairing people with long armors. So like I said, we'll put the list of the ones we have up there, we've talked about, so that you have one to start with. And I'm sure if you do Google, there's a whole bunch more.
Right. We work with on the local level, so that's just all national that you got. Your list was all national. So then you get down into the local area, which I think is another beautiful level. So we have an organization. So I have a lady that I work with. She brings in the quilt tops and she wraps it up just like you said, with the batting and the backing, and they got tied with a neat little fabric, little bow kind of thing. And when my long armers go through their certification class, I tell them, I said, now we have this option. We're not as free as you are with some things. They do have to book a time, and we just only charge 1 hour, just so there's a little bit of skin in the game with reserving the machine, that it doesn't sit empty, kind of thing, like what you're doing. You wait till they call in that day to see if there's an empty machine. But we go ahead and she gives them back. She doesn't care how they're quilted. If they're learning how to free motion, they're learning a pantograph. She's like, okay with it all. If they use 50,000 different threads, she's great. And it goes back, and it's just wonderful to see how amazing that is. And that's just one church in one little city. Quilters chapters and quilters are amazing givers.
Yeah, we do every class we do. Every quilt that's quilted during a class is a donation quilt, right? There's no reason for me to load a quilton or to piece a quilt to do it if I have a donation quilt I can use instead. So unless it's like really specific, like I'm trying to quilt a Judy Nehemiah quilt, I don't know anybody who's going to donate a Judy Nehemiah top. So that's part of it. But I mean, like all of our beginners classes, so new owners classes for APQS, certification classes for long arm, all produce quilts, right? So it's pretty amazing. We're just my showroom alone. We're doing about 50 quilts a month for the charities. So, and anytime we want to, like, I have a new design that I've just created and I want to test it out on a whole quilt, I'm putting a charity quilt on to test it. So, yeah, we, or if I have a employee that wants to build their skills, they'll throw either a charity quilt or one of my mom's on, right? So it's normally a charity quilt. So to me, it's just a great way to give back. Because the worst thing for these machines is for them to sit idle.
Right.
They work better if they're moving.
Especially if you have a spare one in the hotel room. You know, I'm just saying.
That
There's
particular,
a long story behind that.
she helped quilt so many quilts that week.
That's awesome. No, I love the story. I just love it. But just that you had a spare one in the hotel room is like, sure, doesn't everybody?
It was a Lucy, wasn't it?
It was a Lucy. Yeah. And Brenda came to me and said, do you think you could quilt this for us during the show? And I said, that's a quilt of Valor. I don't want people just test driving the machine on that. And she goes, oh. I said, but I have a Lucy in the hotel room. Well, set it up in your booth. She's like, what?
She said, we will move everything around. We can make it like that.
That's awesome.
7-foot frame with a Lucy. So it was just big enough to fit those quilts of Valor. And then people were signing up like the whole time, and experienced long armers would just go in free motion. We had pantographs set up if somebody wanted to do a pantograph instead. And it was just a constant line of people throughout that whole show. I think it was 4 days.
Wow, that's a long show.
4 days. 4 or 5 days. I can't remember. And yeah, it worked out really good.
It did work out. Even I quilted a pantograph while we were there. I learned to quilt maple leaves on a pantograph.
There you go.
Yeah, it was good.
I would have felt much more comfortable quilting it from the front of the machine.
Yeah, because I think I had the curly maple pantograph with me too, for whatever reason. I don't even know why. But I think that's the pantograph we put on the machine. So they were
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
Very forgiving pantograph. If you're looking for a maple leaf pantograph, I highly suggest it.
Well, curly maple.
Curly maple is forgiving.
From
Urban Elements.
Urban Elements.
Urban Elements. Yeah, it's a beautiful pen. It's a beautiful design.
And that's another thing to point out. If you look at like Urban Elements, Intelligent Quilting, some of these big design houses, and you look at their free patterns, you're going to notice kind of a theme there where they're theming these so that they can be put onto quilts of Valor quilts, you know, juvenile quilts. There's a reason they're doing the free patterns that they are for you. Right?
My Creative Stitches has a dog tag pantograph.
Right.
Oh, that's cool.
That is
right.
Cool.
I had to think about that one for a second when you said dog tag after my big blunder in last week's podcast with the OMG David thing. Go ahead and laugh at me. It's all right. I felt like a complete idiot, and I didn't.
Sorry, I didn't mean for that to happen. Oh no, you're fine. Not everybody.
I cannot
Tracy, the only reason I am laughing. Let me caveat and explain.
Oh, you don't need to explain at all. It was not you. You're not the. You weren't the foolish one. It was me.
No, I have been talking about OMG David at Pint 9 down the street to like, it has just been like this conversation of, yeah, it's those guys at Legit Kits, if they wanted people to talk about their patterns, they picked a perfect one.
Yeah. And for me,
speaking of,
for those of you who may have seen last week's podcast or not, so I live in Canada, and we have had a show called Schitt's Creek, which has now got a cult following. With Dan Levy and Eugene Levy, and it's the best show. I've seen the whole series 4 times over COVID. You rewatched it or whatever. So David's sister Alexis in the show, her thing with "Ew, David." So when Kathy said about this OMG David, I'd never heard of Legit Kits. My brain automatically went to David Rose and Schitt's Creek. She's talking about
it was a great moment.
Ew,
If you haven't watched it,
then I found out it was the statue of David, not.
And if you want to go back and watch that podcast, the podcast is everything you wish you would have known when you started to long arm. That's the name of the podcast. So, what you should know. The gift that keeps on giving. Tracy Russell.
That's why I hesitated when you said dog tags. I had to stop and think dog tags. Okay, not furry dog tags. Veteran dog tags.
Not the ones that hang off the collars that say, "My name's Tessa, call my mommy." No.
Oh, I have never claimed to be right, ladies. Never. Not once.
This is why this is such a fun thing, because we never know what's going to be said in our podcast. You better wait till the very end.
I think it was at the very end of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went home and I told my daughter, and she says to me, "Well, what?" I said, "No, it's not David Rose." She said, "Well, what David?" I said, "The statue of David." And she just kind of looked at me for a second, then she went, "Mom!"
Yeah.
Sorry.
But they have speaking of Quilts of Valor, if you ever wanted to if you were really into paper piecing a little on the Judy Niemeyer level, I think, they have a fabulous bald eagle kit. Fabulous. So Legit Kits is really legit. And they have some great, I think Tracy said she wanted to do the motorcycle one.
The motorcycle's kind of cool, yeah.
Yeah.
They're very interesting. Yeah.
Yes. We should get a shout out to Legit Kids and tell them they need to watch this.
Hashtag them or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I think we've all been and still continue and will always be a part of the charity quilt thing, right?
I think it's part of what we should do.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that we have the tool. You know, years ago when I was quilting at home, I quilted charity quilts. I mean, I was trying to make money, so I wasn't down in my basement doing charity quilts every day. But anytime anybody would ask me to do one, I always would do it, and several times would volunteer. And then when I opened the shop, same thing. I've got a stack of them here that have all been donated, mostly by my friend Bonnie. She gets up in the morning and she starts piecing, and she pieces till she goes to bed every single day. So tons of tops come from her. And it's the same thing. I use them in my certification class. I've got 3 over there all stacked up that got done in the last 2 days by people either taking a certification class, or when my quilt path customers get a new quilt path and they want to come, I like to have them here to do a few quilts. I mean, I'll video call with them too, but they'll come here and do quilts. I get out the Quilts of Valor and they work through and they quilt through them, and they all get done. So we have the tools and we should help, because that's part of being a good human being.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And we were at our quilt guild. We're getting ready for our quilt guild show here, the Omaha Quilt Guild. And last year they gave away, there was a lady here that was very pivotal in starting the organization here, if not on the national level, I can't remember now. And it was pretty fun watching that presentation for her. So they do a fabulous job.
They all do. It's good. It's like the little people in crisis. I mean, I can imagine, you know, it's just, it seems like such a little thing, but it's not a little thing. And here's my thing, and I may not be very popular after I say this. Don't make crappy stuff out of crappy fabric because, oh, it's for charity, it doesn't matter. That drives me crazy. It does matter.
Right.
It matters even more because the people that are getting those quilts, whether it's a sick child or somebody who's going through chemo or somebody who's on dialysis or somebody whose baby just died, like their lives are in turmoil.
Mm-hmm.
Use nice fabric. Quilt it with some pride. Use good batting, good backing. You know what I mean? If we're gonna do that, then let's just go that little extra step and give them something nice or good.
Yes.
I don't know the word I'm trying to think. Do you know what I mean? Because I've heard that, and I've heard that here when I have the guilds in for the charity days where they all come in and we load them all up and they quilt as many quilts as they can. I don't charge them for it. It irks me to hear, oh, it doesn't matter, it's just a charity quilt. It matters.
Yeah.
It
I'll
matters.
do Franken batting, which is like pieces of batting sewn together and put them inside of. It's going to hold together.
Fine.
It's still quality batting.
Yes,
No,
for sure.
That's fine. All I'm talking about is like, 1960s poly cotton and,
Or just poly.
stuff that.
But there's a place for that. There's a place that we have a charity here for homeless that wants the polyester because of where they're being used and how much they are washed that they specifically ask for. So that is a legit point that where we need to research where it's going to see what we need to. So there is a healthy place for that. You just need to research where that needs to go.
But not in a baby quilt.
No.
Not in a baby quilt, no.
No, or in a quilt of Valor or on a cancer quilt. No.
I would think that denim quilts would also be good for the homeless shelter because
right,
they can be washed many, many times and they're very denim's very sturdy.
Yeah, and warmer as well.
And
right, and I think that's the other thing too is looking for the warmth in the poly. Yes, ma'am, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So good. Just do 2 seconds of research and you're going to be great.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Well, guys, we've been on for over 30 minutes again. So I'm going to segue to us going up, I know, and going ahead and talking, shutting down the talk this time.
Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies. You guys are always pleasant to spend my afternoon with. I appreciate it very much every single time.
I do too.
Me too. Right. You too.
All right.
Make a quilt and donate it, please, somewhere.
Yes. Or you want to learn how to quilt? I have charity quilts you can quilt all day long. I do. It's a lot of fun, and it's a good thing to give. It really is.
It is.
It's a good thing.
Yep. With that, have an awesome night, guys.
You too.
Bye.